The Indian origin CEO believes that AI is the most influential technology humanity is currently working on.
There were no sparks, no alarms, no frantic engineers pulling cables from the wall. In one of the coldest rooms on Earth, a machine completed a calculation that no human mind could ever reproduce. In late 2024, Google's latest quantum processor, Willow, executed a specific benchmark test a problem deliberately designed to overwhelm the world's most advanced supercomputers. If a standard computer tried to solve it, the math would take 10 septillion years. That is longer than the universe has existed. Willow finished the job in under 5 minutes. Google celebrated. Sundar Pichai posted the results publicly. Hartmut Neven, the head of Google's quantum AI lab, called it a breakthrough that lends credibility to the notion that quantum computation occurs in many parallel universes. And it is a breakthrough. But buried inside that triumph is a question that the celebration doesn't answer. They have built a machine that can provide answers humanity is no longer capable of checking. And that raises a question the entire field will eventually have to confront. When you build a tool whose output exceeds your ability to verify it, how do you know if it's telling you the truth? To understand the problem, you must first understand the environment. This is not a server farm. It is a new kind of physics laboratory. Inside these hanging golden tubes, called cryostats, the temperature is kept near absolute zero, colder than the vacuum of deep space. The chip must be this cold because it operates on the rules of quantum mechanics, and those rules only work in near-perfect isolation from the outside world. For 70 years, our digital world has been built on bits, switches that are either on or off, 1 or 0. But Google has spent 15 years betting on something fundamentally different: qubits. By utilizing two properties of quantum physics, superposition and entanglement, qubits can represent combinations of states simultaneously. This allows quantum computers to explore vast numbers of mathematical possibilities in parallel, rather than working through them one at a time. In 2019, Google claimed quantum supremacy with their Sycamore chip. It was their Wright brothers' moment-to-12-second flight that proved the underlying physics worked. But Sycamore was unstable. Its qubits collapsed too quickly. Critics, including IBM, argued the benchmark was cherry-picked and called the achievement impractical. And in many ways, they were right. Willow is Google's answer to those critics. And to understand why, you need to understand the one problem that was supposed to be unsolvable. For decades, the skeptics had a legitimate argument. Quantum computers are inherently fragile. A single stray photon, a microscopic vibration, or a tiny fluctuation in temperature can cause a qubit to lose its quantum state. This is called decoherence, and it produces errors noise. And for a long time, adding more qubits to a system just created more noise. It was like trying to build a taller tower with crumbling bricks. The bigger you went, the faster it fell. But in a landmark paper published in Nature, the Google quantum AI team demonstrated something the field had been chasing for almost 30 years. They created what are called logical qubits, clusters of physical qubits bound together so they can detect and correct each other's errors. And they proved something remarkable. As they scaled up the grid from a 3x3 array to a 5x5 and then to a 7x7, the error rate didn't increase. It decreased exponentially. This result is called going below threshold. It is the moment quantum error correction transitions from theoretical possibility to engineering reality. The errors are being caught and fixed in real time, using AI-assisted decoders operating in millionths of a second. For the first time, the path to building a large-scale, reliable quantum computer is no longer blocked by physics. It is now a matter of engineering, and engineering problems, given enough time and money, get solved. But solving the engineering is what creates the real problem. Because a reliable quantum computer doesn't just give us faster answers. It gives us answers we may have no way to verify. Here's where the triumph becomes complicated. The benchmark Willow completed, called random circuit sampling, is a narrow, specific task. It doesn't cure diseases. It doesn't design materials. It was chosen precisely because it is astronomically hard for classical computers, but well-suited to quantum hardware. In that sense, it is a proof of capability, not a practical application. But this is where we need to think about what comes next. When a calculator tells you 2 + 2 = 4, You can verify it with your fingers. When a supercomputer predicts a hurricane's path, you can check the forecast against the storm. These are tools whose outputs live within the range of human verification. But the entire point of a quantum computer is to solve problems that classical computers cannot. That is its purpose. And that purpose creates an inherent tension. If, in 5 or 10 years, a scaled-up quantum machine simulates a new molecular structure for a drug compound, and that simulation would take a classical computer longer than the age of the universe to replicate, we will have an answer we cannot independently verify through computation. We could, of course, synthesize the molecule and test it physically. Science still has empirical checks. But the computational step itself, the reasoning the machine used to arrive at that answer, becomes a black box. This is what researchers call the verification gap. It is not a crisis today. Willow's current benchmark can be statistically validated using sampling techniques. But it is the trajectory. As quantum computers scale and tackle increasingly complex real-world problems, the gap between what they can compute and what we can check will widen. And that gap raises hard questions about trust, governance, and how we make decisions based on outputs we must take on faith. While researchers grapple with verification, the intelligence community is worried about something more immediate: secrets. The encryption that protects your bank account, your medical records, your private messages, and classified government communications is built on a mathematical foundation, the difficulty of factoring very large numbers. It is a lock that works because no existing computer can pick it in any reasonable amount of time. A classical machine trying to break RSA 2048 encryption would need longer than the age of the universe. But in 1994, mathematician Peter Shor designed an algorithm purpose-built for quantum computers that could, in theory, crack this problem efficiently. For 30 years, Shor's algorithm has been a theoretical thread-loaded gun with no trigger, because running it requires a quantum computer with thousands of stable, error-corrected logical qubits. Willow has 105 physical qubits. Breaking RSA 2048 is estimated to require roughly 20 million, so this is not an imminent threat. Most experts place it 10 to 20 years away, possibly more. But here is why the intelligence community is not waiting. There is a strategy now well documented by cybersecurity researchers and intelligence agencies alike, known as Harvest Now, Decrypt Later. State actors and sophisticated hackers are currently intercepting and storing vast quantities of encrypted data, diplomatic cables, military communications, financial records, personal data. Data they cannot read. Yet, they are banking on the future. They are betting that within the next decade or two, a quantum machine capable of running Shor's algorithm at scale will come online. And when it does, every byte of data harvested today becomes an open book. This is why the US government has already begun mandating the transition to post-quantum cryptography, new encryption standards designed to resist quantum attacks. NIST finalized its first set of these standards in 2024. The clock isn't ticking down to when the data is stolen. The data is already gone. The clock is ticking down to when it becomes readable. And Willow's error correction breakthrough just made that clock feel a lot more real. And there's one more factor that changes the timeline. The relationship between quantum computing and artificial intelligence is becoming symbiotic. Google is already using AI models to improve quantum hardware. Their alpha qubit system uses machine learning to identify and predict qubit errors more accurately than conventional methods. AI is optimizing chip layouts, calibration routines, and error correction protocols, finding efficiencies that would take human engineers far longer to discover. The hypothesis, and it is still a hypothesis, not a certainty, is that this relationship will eventually become a feedback loop. Better quantum hardware could accelerate the training and optimization of AI models, which in turn design better quantum hardware, each generation improving the next. We're not there yet. No quantum computer has demonstrated a practical advantage in training neural networks, but the trajectory is visible. And if that loop does close, if the tool starts meaningfully improving the toolmaker, the pace of progress will move beyond what linear human planning is built to manage. Some researchers find this exhilarating. Others find it deeply concerning. An incredible number of experts believe the entire timeline is still overhyped, that practical, fault-tolerant quantum computing remains decades away, not years, and that the engineering challenges ahead are being underestimated. That skepticism deserves weight. The history of quantum computing is littered with premature predictions. But what Willow's error correction result changed is this. The physics is no longer the bottleneck. For the first time, the question is not if it can be done, but when. And when is a question that makes people act. Sundar Pichai has compared artificial intelligence to fire a force that can cook your food or burn down your village, depending on how it's controlled. Quantum computing may deserve the same analogy. It is not intelligent, it does not think, but it is capable of producing knowledge that sits beyond the reach of human verification, and that alone changes our relationship with the tools we build. The promise is extraordinary. Simulating molecular interactions to develop new medicines, modeling climate systems with unprecedented precision, designing materials and energy systems we cannot currently imagine. These are not fantasies. They are the stated engineering goals of the next generation of quantum hardware. But the cost of that promise is a new kind of uncertainty. Not the uncertainty of ignorance, but the uncertainty of answers we cannot independently confirm. We will increasingly face a choice. Trust the output of a machine whose internal logic exceeds our ability to follow it, or refuse the answer and forego the benefits. That is the quantum threshold. Not a moment of machine supremacy. Not a dramatic shutdown. Just a quiet crossing the point where our tools become capable of knowing things we cannot prove. And we have to decide what to do with that. What would you do? I'm Joe from the Inspired Inkwell. Thanks for watching.